Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB game scheduled for Wednesday, July 26, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my $19 rundown best bet, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Wednesday in Major League Baseball. First up, it's the Rockies and the Nationals at Nationals Park. We're going to see Peter Lambert and Jake Irvin on the mound in this one. You know, the Rockies are playing pretty good baseball on the road right now. We saw them play really good ball at Miami in Lone Depot Park. They took the first game of this series. Their offense has done pretty well. But when you look at the last 30 days numbers, against right-handed pitchers overall, the Rockies aren't doing too much. And on the road especially, the Rockies have struggled against right-handed pitchers, where isolated power-wise, they're ranked 25th in baseball. Team OPS-wise, 28th in the league with a 27% strikeout rate and only a 5.7% walk rate. So, you know, Jake Irvin's coming off a solid outing against the San Francisco Giants. It was good enough for a win in the end, 6 2/3, 9 strikeouts, and only 3 earned runs. I'm going to take the Washington Nationals here, even though the Rockies are playing pretty good baseball right now. I'll take the Nationals on the money line. Next up, we go to the Battle of the Sunshine State as the Marlins take on the Rays. We're going to see Sandy Alcantara and Zach Eflin on the mound in this one. Now, right when we thought Sandy Alcantara was starting to look like the Cy Young winner we saw last year, he struggled in his last outing against St. Louis, goes 6 innings, gives up 8 base hits, 4 earned runs, another home run, makes it at least 1 home run allowed in each of his last 4 starts, 2 walks in a 6-4 Cardinals win, and that makes it 4 straight games now for Sandy where he has started and the Marlins took the L. I think they take another L here against Zach Eflin and the Rays. Good Rays lineup, a bullpen that's really improved in the last 30 days or so, and Zach Eflin's really tough to beat at Tropicana Field. 10-1 record, 2.1 ERA at home this season, 68 2/3 innings with 72 strikeouts at home, only 7 walks allowed, so his control's been there. His last start was at Tropicana Field against the Orioles, a good lineup there. 7 innings, only 2 base hits, only 1 walk, 8 strikeouts, no earned runs, and a 3-0 Rays win. Give me the Tampa Bay Rays here on the money line against the Fish. Next up, we go to Minnesota as the Mariners take on the Twins with Bryce Miller and Joe Ryan as your starting pitchers. You know, Joe Ryan not really in the best of form right now. Now, he is missing a lot of bats and earning a lot of strikeouts, but he's giving up a lot of sharp contact and a lot of home runs. We've mentioned that Joe Ryan is more of a strikeout-dependent starter, that when he gives up runs, it's usually via the long ball, gives up a lot of fly balls, and recently it's been a lot of sharp contact. 5 home runs his last 3 starts. That's a concern for me because even though Seattle does strike out quite a bit as a team and Ryan should be able to earn those Ks in this game, they're also a pretty powerful lineup that is kind of home run dependent, similar to the Minnesota Twins, honestly. So I could see Joe Ryan having some issues in a game like this. Bryce Miller's on really good form right now on the other side for Seattle. 5 1/3 innings his last start against the Blue Jays, 1 run, 6 strikeouts in a 3-2 Mariners win. Mariners have won each of his last 2 starts, and he's only given up 1 run his last 2 games combined. It's tough to go with Joe Ryan here in the Twins. Give me the Seattle Mariners on the money line on the road. Next up, we see the Kansas City Royals taking on the Cleveland Guardians. No official starter for Cleveland right now, but I do see Gavin Williams listed on ESPN. Alec Marsh should be going for Kansas City. I don't love the matchup for Alec Marsh because, even though he's had issues mostly with the home run ball and the Guardians aren't a very powerful lineup, they do a really good job at limiting strikeouts. And Marsh, I would consider a strikeout-dependent starter. He's got 24 Ks through 20 1/3 innings. The Guardians also have good OPS numbers in general against right-handed pitchers, so I do think Marsh struggles here. Gavin Williams has pitched against the Royals twice this season. Could be an issue, facing the same lineup 3 times in a pretty short span, but in those first 2 starts, really good numbers for Gavin Williams. 2 wins for the Guardians in those outings. So give me the Cleveland Guardians here, laying the 1.5 runs in this one. Next up, it's the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. We're going to see Jack Flaherty and Zach Gallen on the mound in this one. Now, I don't love the way the Diamondbacks have looked lately, especially their pitching staff. Going into Tuesday's games, the Arizona Diamondbacks have given up 7 or more runs in 4 of their last 5 games. But Zach Gallen has been so good at Chase Field this season. He's 9-0 with a 1.48 ERA in about 67 innings and 76 strikeouts, only 3 home runs allowed, only 9 walks allowed. I think he pitches pretty well here. He hasn't been great on the road, but he's been really good at home. On the other side, Jack Flaherty has been better on the road than he has been at Busch Stadium, but in his last start on the road at Wrigley Field, he struggled against the Cubbies, giving up 4 earned runs, 8 base hits, and 2 home runs, making it 3 home runs his last 2 starts. I'll take the Arizona Diamondbacks here, lay those 1.5 runs, but not my favorite game because, like I said, don't like the way Arizona has looked. Next up, it's the Cincinnati Reds and the Milwaukee Brewers. Ben Lively and Freddie Peralta are your starters in this one. I got to give the upper hand to the Brewers in this game. Not only have the Brewers dominated this season series, but their bullpen's been one of the best in baseball in the last month. Freddie Peralta, even though he struggled in his last start against Atlanta, has been better at home this season than he's been on the road. He's also faced the Reds once this year, only once, which is important because Ben Lively's faced the Brewers 2 times in the last 3 weeks. Peralta, in that start against Cincinnati, goes 6 innings, 1 hit, 6 strikeouts, shutout baseball, and a 3-0 Brewers win. Ben Lively, like I mentioned, has faced the Brewers twice. It's not easy facing the same team 3 times in the span of 1 month. And his expected numbers aren't the best right now, so I do expect some regression in his game. I look for a bounce-back start for Freddie Peralta. I like the Brewers in this game on the money line at home. Next up, we go to Los Angeles as the Dodgers take on the Blue Jays. We're going to see Yusei Kikuchi and Tony Gonsolin on the mound in this one. Now, overall this season, the Dodgers have good numbers against left-handed pitchers, but in the last month, they're right around league average in team OPS. Yusei Kikuchi is in good form going into this start. His last 2 games against the Diamondbacks and Mariners, he goes 10 innings combined, only 1 run allowed, no home runs, and 12 strikeouts. With Tony Gonsolin on the other side struggling and regressing in a pretty big way, I do think there's some value here with the Blue Jays on the money line. Gonsolin's given up 4 earned runs or more in 4 of his last 5 starts. And he also doesn't really go too deep into ball games, so it puts the Dodgers bullpen in a pretty tough spot in my opinion. I like the Blue Jays in this game. We're getting a really good price with Toronto on the road. Give me him on the money line. Next up, we see the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the San Diego Padres. Johan Oviedo and Seth Lugo are your starters. Now, I know the Padres have been a big disappointment this season, both from a fan perspective, if you're a fan of San Diego, or more importantly, in our case, from a betting perspective. They had big expectations going into the season. They failed almost all those expectations, but in this spot, I still have to take the Padres and lay those 1.5 runs. Johan Oviedo, the Pirates have lost each of his last 8 starts, and all 8 of those losses by 2 or more runs. The Padres do have good numbers against righties as of late. They're top 15 in baseball in team OPS, top 10 in isolated power, very low strikeout rate, and a very high walk rate as well. Just not a good matchup at all for Johan Oviedo. Seth Lugo, not my favorite starting pitcher, is not really in the best of form going in this game. He did have a nice bounce-back outing against the Detroit Tigers on paper, but the Tigers had plenty of opportunities in that game. They had bases loaded, nobody out at one point, didn't score a single run in that inning. So, even though Lugo's not in the best form, I still think he's good enough here. Give me the San Diego Padres laying those 1.5 runs. Next up, it's the Baltimore Orioles taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. Kyle Bradish and Ranger Suarez are your starters. Kyle Bradish has been Mr. Consistent for the Orioles as of late. Now his ERA at 3.05. In his last 5 starts, 2 earned runs or fewer at all 5 of those games, 5+ strikeouts in all those games. And Ranger Suarez starting to struggle a little bit for the Philadelphia Phillies, an ERA now above 4 on the season. He is 0-2 with a 5.64 ERA at Citizens Bank Park. Last start against the Guardians, gave up 8 base hits and 4 earned runs against a team in Cleveland that doesn't really hit lefties too well. And the Orioles, even though at the beginning of the season their numbers against lefties weren't great, starting to make those improvements. And we see in the last 30 days, Orioles are 7th in isolated power against lefties, 12th in team OPS, and a high walk rate to go with it. Give me the Baltimore Orioles here on the money line on the road. Next up, we see the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Detroit Tigers with Patrick Sandoval and Michael Lorenzen on the mound. In this one, Lorenzen facing his former team. Now, Sandoval in June had a 7.11 ERA in 25 1/3 innings. The Angels went 1-4 in his starts in the month of June. It was just a rough month for him, but so far in July, he is pitching a lot better. 12 1/3 innings, only 2 earned runs with a 1.46 ERA. 12 strikeouts. Now, the walks are the big concern for me. 7 walks allowed so far in July. We know his control's been a problem this season, and the Detroit Tigers do have pretty good numbers against lefties in the last month. Right around league average in team OPS, but above league average in isolated power with a very low strikeout rate to go with it. Michael Lorenzen was an all-star this year, controversial pick for the all-star team, but now got that 3.49 ERA because in his last 3 outings, shutout baseball in all 3 of those starts. Not the best strength of schedule, the A's, the Mariners, and the Royals, but still, he's winning games for the Tigers. I think there's value on the Tigers in this spot. Give me Detroit on the money line at Comerica. Next up, it's the Atlanta Braves taking on the Boston Red Sox. We're going to see Spencer Strider and Brian Bayo as the projected starters for now, but there is no official lineup for this game because Brian Bayo was placed on the paternity list about 5 days ago, so they're waiting for a confirmation to make sure he's ready to go for this start. In Bayo's last 2 outings against the Athletics and the Chicago Cubs, both of those games on the road, gave up 5 home runs in those games, 9 earned runs combined as well. He's struggling so far in the month of July as a whole, 5.82 ERA and those 6 home runs. That's a concern for me for a guy who's a pitch-to-contact pitcher who likes to keep the ball on the ground. He has a well above 50% ground ball percentage overall this season, but right at 50% so far in July. Facing a Braves team that knows a thing or two about a home run against right-handed pitchers, I am a little bit worried about Bello in this spot. Strider's been really good on the road this season, a 2.94 ERA, 7-1 record with 78 strikeouts in 52 innings. I think he's good enough here for the Braves to grab a W, so give me the Atlanta Braves here on the money line on the road. Next up, it's the Subway Series between the New York Mets and the New York Yankees. A pair of southpaws on the mound in this one, Carlos Rodon and Jose Quintana. Now, Carlos Rodon, even though the New York Mets have not hit lefties very well in the last month, while the Yankees have, I just can't lay this kind of price with Carlos Rodon right now. I mean, he's 0-3 with a 7.36 ERA. His first 3 starts as a Yankee. His last game is worst so far, 4 1/3 innings, 6 earned runs, 2 home runs, 5 walks, and he blew a kiss to a disgruntled Yankee fan after the game or after his start. I do think that the Mets put up a fight here. I mean, Jose Quintana, I watched his start against the White Sox. He took the loss in that game, but he actually pitched pretty well in that one. 5 innings, 2 runs. A lot of those hits that he gave up were really weak singles. No walks in that game. I like to see his strikeout numbers rise a little bit, but his control was there. He didn't give up a home run. I think he pitches pretty well in this game. I think that there's some value with the New York Mets in this spot. So give me the Mets on the money line on the road. Next up, we see the Chicago Cubs taking on the Chicago White Sox. Marcus Stroman and Lance Lynn are your starters. Now, I have to think the Cubs fans are probably not too happy with Marcus Stroman as of late because not only, he is struggling right now. Not only is that hurting the team's chances of winning games, as they're not completely out of it in the National League wildcard race, but if the Cubs are in fact sellers at the deadline, they're hurting, Marcus Stroman's hurting his trade stock and his value at the deadline to bring in a big haul for the Cubbies. So, Stroman's last 5 games, the Cubs are 1-4 in those games. He's given up 4 earned runs or more in 3 of those 5. A lot of base runners, a lot of walks, a lot of base hits, some home runs as well. The Chicago White Sox have Lance Lynn on the mound, who has struggled this season pretty notably, but he does have pretty good strikeout numbers and overall this season and as of late. 139 strikeouts in 115 innings, so his expected numbers are pretty good. His xFIP's actually below 4. His expected ERA is just a little bit above 4. I think there's value here with the Chicago White Sox, and even though Lance Lynn has struggled as of late, the Sox are 3-2 in his last 5 outings. The offense has backed him up. I think they back him up here. Give me the Chicago White Sox on the money line. Next up, we see the Texas Rangers taking on the Houston Astros. Andrew Heaney and Framber Valdez are your starters. Now, I think Framber Valdez is the better starting pitcher in this matchup, but I think the matchup benefits Andrew Heaney a lot more. The Rangers do have better numbers against lefties than the Astros do in the last 30 days, but beyond that, Framber Valdez not really in the best form right now. In the month of July, a 5.71 ERA. His last 2 starts against the Angels and the Athletics goes 11 1/3 innings, gives up 9 earned runs and 2 home runs in those starts. He faced the Rangers once this season, more towards the beginning of the year on April 16th, but in that game, in 6 innings, gives up 5 total runs and a 9-1 Rangers win. Andrew Heaney on the other side has faced this Astros lineup twice. He's gone 10 innings of shutout baseball with 12 strikeouts in the end. I'm going to take the Texas Rangers in this one. I also think the Rangers bullpen is a lot better than their ERA right now in the last 30 days. Right now it's above 6 in the last month, but the expected numbers are actually pretty good. The Rangers have the 10th best Sierra in baseball bullpen-wise in the last 30 days. So I'm going to take the Texas Rangers here on the money line on the road. Next up, we see the Oakland Athletics taking on the San Francisco Giants, the final game for Wednesday's card in Major League Baseball. Hogan Ayers had a really nice bounce-back outing against the Houston Astros. 6 innings of 2-run baseball, 6 strikeouts with no walks on July 20th. He's facing a Giants team that may be interested in Justin Verlander at the trade deadline, but right now has severe offense issues where against lefties and righties they are struggling mightily. San Francisco in the last 30 days against lefties is dead last in baseball in team OPS, 29th in isolated power. The A's have much better numbers there against lefties. They face Alex Wood here, who struggled in his last start. His ERA now just below 5 on the season. I think there's value here with the road underdogs. Give me the Oakland A's plus the 1.5 runs in this one, 10 tonight. And that's it. Those are the games for Wednesday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. But don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.